Blessed One, Shakyamuni Buddha, precious treasury of compassion, bestower of supreme inner peace, you who love all beings without exception, are the source of happiness and goodness, and you guide us to the liberating path. Your body is a wish-fulfilling jewel. Your speech is supreme purifying nectar, and your mind is refuge for all living beings. With folded hands I turn to you, supreme unchanging friend. I request from the depths of my heart, please give me the light of your wisdom to dispel the darkness of my mind, and to heal my mental continuum. Please nourish me with your goodness, that I in turn may nourish all beings with an unceasing banquet of delight. Through your compassionate intention, your blessings and virtuous deeds, and my strong wish to rely upon you, may all suffering quickly cease, and all happiness and joy be fulfilled, and may holy Dhamma flourish forevermore.
Welcome to our retreat on the Great Mother. So it is in this prayer booklet, a very special practice, or also in the back of the New Heart of Wisdom. If you don't have either of these, please contemplate deeply what you hear when we're actually doing the practice, so that you can gain the ability to purify obstacles. So in the introduction, Venerable Geshe Kelsang says, all living beings wish to be happy, but again and again they find their attainment of happiness frustrated by obstacles and hindrances, both external and internal. So you can check this out in your own daily life. External hindrances can arise from animate objects such as malevolent humans and wild animals, or from inanimate objects such as the four external elements of earth, water, fire, and wind. And aren't we seeing this now in our society with the terrible fires in California and Oregon, and also with the hurricanes that have been hitting Texas and Louisiana particularly hard? These four external elements can give rise to earthquakes, floods, destructive fires, and hurricanes. Internal hindrances, in other words, the ones that are in our mind, arise from causes within our body and mind. So if our four internal elements are in a state of harmonious equilibrium, our body is healthy. But when they're out of balance, our body experiences a variety of problems and diseases. If our mind is filled with negative thoughts and delusions, such as desirous attachment or uncontrolled desire, anger, and ignorance, particularly the ignorance of self-grasping, which we're going to talk a lot about in this retreat, we experience great harm and suffering as a result. We all know how terrible it feels when our mind is running amok while we're following our painful delusions, which are the thoughts in our mind that create terribly painful feelings and cause our mind to be uncontrolled and cause us to harm ourselves, harm others, and as a result, according to the law of karma, create our future suffering. They prevent us from maintaining a peaceful mind and also destroy whatever happiness we may have gained. The main obstacles that hinder our progress to liberation and enlightenment can be summarized as four maras, which is a Sanskrit word meaning demon. The four maras are the mara of our delusions, which we've just discussed, the mara of our body and mind, also called aggregates, because just by being born, we experience suffering, as we know from the painful aspects that we're experiencing from our body and also from our mind. The mara of the Lord of Death, which is, of course, an analogy, because if we die when we don't know the time of our death, it's definite that we will die, but death interrupts our spiritual practice. And Devaputra Mara. Devaputra Mara are unseen spirits that try to interfere with our attaining permanent liberation and the state of full enlightenment. Although we don't see them, they definitely can influence our mind. Anyone who's conquered these four maras completely is an enlightened being, a Buddha, or also called a conqueror. Okay. So all the suffering we experience arises as a result of our delusions and the actions we create under their influence, as well as disrupting our temporary happiness and peace. Delusions also hinder our progress towards the ultimate happiness of liberation and enlightenment. Okay. So there's more in this introduction, but I want to explain the practice. Okay. But this part is very important. To the extent to which we are successful in overcoming obstacles through this practice depends on the strength of our faith. We can increase our faith by contemplating illustrations of practice, such as the time when the god Indra overcame the anger and jealousy of the demigods who were attacking him. There's another story that Venerable Geshe Kelsang tells in his commentary to this practice about how a highly realized spiritual guide called Ukarwa averted the murderous threat of a black magician. Basically, he did this practice, and the black magician had threatened to kill him within a week. And so he went home and performed this practice for the entire week, and then the black magician suddenly died. So he wasn't wishing for his death, but it seemed as if the practice caused the black magician's own magic to turn against him. So accounts of these, as well as a more detailed explanation of different types of hindrances, can be found in the book, The New Heart of Wisdom, which is a commentary to the essence of Wisdom Sutra, which is also known as the Heart Sutra. So in this practice, we establish our field of merit, which is Buddha Shakyamuni with the Great Mother Prajnaparamita at his heart. And they're surrounded by all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And then we go for refuge and we generate our strong wish to benefit living beings by striving to become an enlightened being called generating bodhicitta. And then of the verse we recite 3 times. We prostrate.
Ginchogden. Dear. It's off.
Reset. Connected now. Thinking of obstacles. Our microphone is an external obstacle. So as I was saying, we go for we establish the field of merit with Buddha Shakyamuni as the center figure with the Great Mother Prajnaparamita, which represents his perfection of wisdom, or his truth body at his heart. And then we surround him with all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. We don't have to visualize them very carefully, but we just know they're there. Even Buddha with the Great Mother, as long as we believe that he is there, that she is there, then we can go for refuge in a qualified way, according to the words of the Sadhana. We can generate our wish to benefit others, to liberate others by becoming an enlightened being ourselves. And then we, in the preliminaries, prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge and request blessings, and request being empowered by your blessings. Then we're going to recite the Heart Sutra. So reciting Buddha's speech is a tremendous purification practice in and of itself. So there are several different purification practices embodied in this sadhana. And so reciting the Heart Sutra is one of them. Okay. And following that, we're going to recite the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, which is another way to purify our obstacles. And in this, we're making requests to attain a direct realization of ultimate truth, which is also called emptiness, or a direct realization of the way things actually are. And we're going to be meditating on emptiness throughout this retreat. So we're requesting that we can accomplish the 5 Mahayana paths leading us directly to the path of no more learning or great enlightenment. Then we're going to make specific requests to the Great Mother Prajnaparamita and all the other Buddhas to overcome our hindrances. Okay. In the commentary, Venerable Geshe Kelsang says, after the mantra recitation, we make requests to avert hindrances. While we recite the requesting verses, we think about the harm and hindrances that we wish to overcome. So please make this very personal. Think about your own life and the obstacles that you're experiencing in your life, both outer obstacles and then your inner response to those obstacles, your unpeaceful states of mind. your delusions of, anger and disappointment and cravings and all the things, anxiety, fear, all the painful feelings that are accompanying thoughts in our mind that are delusions, and particularly our ignorance of self-grasping, our lack of understanding of the way things actually exist. Okay. Then when we reach the point where we recite, may all the harm of the Maras, non-humans, and so forth be overcome, we clap our hands like that, okay? And we imagine that all the harms and hindrances gather in to emptiness or the lack of inherent existence, which I'll speak about briefly in just a moment, okay? Actually, sound is a wonderful illustration of the lack of inherent existence because it doesn't come from anywhere, it doesn't go anywhere, it's produced by causes and conditions. Okay, so the second phrase is, may they become non-existent. We clap again and imagine that they dissolve into emptiness. When we recite, may they be pacified, we clap and imagine that they cease completely in emptiness. In other words, they lack inherent existence. They are a mere appearance to our mind, and we are disappearing obstacles from our mind. Very important, particularly our inner obstacles, because if we have no inner obstacles, we will not experience outer obstacles. We will be able to transform adverse conditions into great spiritual development and be able to keep our mind peaceful and happy all the time, even in the midst of any type of adverse conditions that you're experiencing. Finally, we recite, may they be thoroughly pacified. We clap for the fourth time and think, none of the harm and hindrances can ever rise again. So again, this is going on in our mind. It's our attitude towards our hindrances and our obstacles that we're able to change. And sometimes even the external obstacles dissolve. This is a very powerful practice. Okay. We then meditate on the emptiness of ourself and others. We can think that we, all that harms us, and the harm itself are all empty of inherent existence. And we're particularly going to do this in our second session. We try to generate this realization and maintain it as well as we can. After the meditation on emptiness, we recite the remaining dedication verse. So now we need to have a bit of understanding on what is emptiness. So for many of you, you've heard these teachings many times, but we can't hear them often enough, and we need to deeply contemplate what Venerable Geshe Kelsang says in The New Heart of Wisdom. The important thing for us is to understand that emptiness is the mere absence of inherent existence. So since it's the absence of inherent existence, we need to understand what inherent existence actually is. So when Avalokiteshvara says form is empty, which is in the Heart Sutra, he is meaning that forms such as our body, and this also includes our mind and self, because he also, all of our aggregates of our body and mind are empty. He means that form, such as our body, is empty of inherent existence, or that form does not exist inherently. Our body doesn't exist inherently. Our self doesn't exist inherently. Our mind doesn't exist inherently. Nothing exists inherently. So we have to understand what is inherent existence. He says on page 45, if something were inherently existent, it would have an existence within itself, independent of other phenomena. So that's the way things look to us. Things look as if they have an existence within themselves and that they're separate or independent from other phenomena. If an object were inherently existent, it would also be truly existent and existent from its own side. An object would be truly existent if it existed truly as it appeared. In other words, things appear to be independent from each other and independent from our mind. However, we can challenge that appearance, as we'll see as we go along. Something would exist. So the object would be truly existent if it existed truly as it appeared and could be found upon investigation. So we're going to investigate in this session during the 20-minute silence whether we can actually find the self that we normally see. And in order to try to find the self that we normally see, we have to identify it. That's the tricky part. And the reason it's the tricky part is because when we try to identify it, it tends to disappear. Why? Because it actually does not exist the way that it appears to us. And so when we actually search for it, we cannot find it. But we can get glimpses of it, enough glimpses of it that we understand that our self cannot possibly exist the way that we relate to it, that we actually think that it exists. Something would exist from its own side if its existence were established from the side of the object itself without depending upon an apprehending consciousness. So what we're saying is that things appear to exist separate from our mind. But in fact, nothing exists separate from our mind. Everything is a mere appearance to our mind. Everything lacks inherent existence. So tonight when you go to sleep, your world disappears because your mind stopped functioning. The world, as others are experiencing it, goes on because their minds are functioning if they're awake. But if several people are asleep in your house, none of those people's world is appearing to them. I think it's very easy to demonstrate to ourselves that our world depends upon our mind, that it's a mere appearance to our mind. It's just that we don't think about that during our daily life. We don't realize that we're actually appearing everything that we experience from our mind. This is why everyone has different opinions, why they have different perceptions of things that happen. You know, there can be some event that occurs and you can talk to 10 different people. They'll give you 10 different versions of what happened during that event or what they heard during that event. It's because everything is a mere appearance to their mind. So the nature of our reality is actually coming from our mind. It's so important to think about this deeply, to contemplate this deeply. And we'll use the example of ourself during the meditation to really be able to try to get a feeling for this. If we're ordinary beings, which pretty much all of us are ordinary as opposed to beings who've attained a direct realization of ultimate truth who are called superior beings or enlightened beings, all objects appear to us to exist inherently. In other words, we have mistaken appearance. Our senses, over countless lifetimes, we've created this karma of having this virtual reality that we project from our mind. Objects seem to be independent of our mind and independent of other phenomena. The universe appears to consist of discrete objects that have an existence from their own side. So there's a big argument going on among physicists about how things exist. Some people are understanding that everything depends on the mind. Other people feel that there are discrete objects that we're simply discovering. So it's not just these teachings are very, very relevant to our modern life. The objects appear to exist in themselves as stars, planets, mountains, people, and so forth, waiting to be experienced by conscious beings. In other words, we have no question in our mind if we're going to visit someone that that person is waiting to see us and that that person is completely independent of our mind. And Buddha says we're completely mistaken about that, that we're actually bringing that person into existence with our mind. We appear that person. Normally, it does not occur to us that we are involved in any way in the existence of these phenomena. So unless you've heard these teachings before, I think that's completely true. And even after hearing them for some time, we still have this tendency to think it is completely true. Instead, people believe that each object appears to have an existence completely independent of us and all other objects. Okay. So that is our challenge because that's the way we think. And what we want to do is to begin to challenge that thinking. And we can use this practice to help us to challenge that thinking because that's our biggest obstacle. It's called the ignorance of self-grasping. Okay. So I'll guide the meditation in the silent period, which occurs after mantra recitation. I'm going to guide a meditation from modern Buddhism. So we can now prepare our mind to spend a few moments focusing on your breath, allowing everything else to fall away from your mind. Find a comfortable meditation posture with your back straight and your hands comfortably in your lap. And try to focus on the meaning of the words of the prayer. And we want to create an intention to increase our understanding of the way things are, emptiness, and to purify our obstacles so that we can benefit living beings more effectively by increasing inner peace within our mind and removing the obstacles that interfere with our having a warm and friendly feeling towards every living being and compassion. Now we can begin by visualizing Buddha Shakyamuni with the Great Mother Prajnaparamita at his heart. Visualizing yellow light is sufficient, surrounded by all the other holy beings. And we can now go for refuge according to the Siddhanta.
I and all sentient beings, until we achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings, until we achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings, until we achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Through the virtues I collect, by giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Through the virtues I collect, by giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Through the virtues I collect, by giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Namo Guru, Teacher, Blessed One, and the Great Mother Prajnaparamita, surrounded by your sons, the Buddhas of the 10 directions, and all bodhisattvas, I prostrate to this assembly, make offerings and go for refuge. Please empower me with your blessings. Namo Guru, Teacher, Blessed One, and the Great Mother Prajnaparamita, surrounded by your sons, the Buddhas of the 10 directions, and all bodhisattvas, I prostrate to this assembly, make offerings and go for refuge. Please empower me with your blessings. Namo Guru, Teacher, Blessed One, and the Great Mother Prajnaparamita, surrounded by your sons, the Buddhas of the 10 directions, and all bodhisattvas, I prostrate to this assembly, make offerings and go for refuge. Please empower me with your blessings.
Homage to the perfection of wisdom, the Blessed Mother. Thus I have heard. At one time, the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha, on Mast Vulture's mountain, together with a great assembly of monks and nuns, and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was absorbed in the concentration of the countless aspects of phenomena called profound illumination. At that time also, the superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the Great Being, was looking perfectly at the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, looking perfectly also at the five aggregates being empty of inherent existence. Then, through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said to the superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the Great Being, "How should a son of the lineage train who wishes to engage in the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom?" Thus he spoke, and the superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the Great Being, replied to the Venerable Shariputra as follows: "Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of the lineage wishes to engage in the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom should look perfectly like this, subsequently looking perfectly and correctly also at the five aggregates being empty of inherent existence. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form also is not other than emptiness. Likewise, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are emptiness, having no characteristics. They are not produced and do not cease. They have no defilement and no separation from defilement. They have no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mentality. No form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no tactile object, no phenomenon. There is no eye element and so forth, up to no mentality element, and also up to no element of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance, and so forth, up to no aging and death and no exhaustion of aging and death. Likewise, there is no suffering, origin, cessation, or path, no exalted awareness, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely upon and abide in the perfection of wisdom. Their minds have no obstructions and no fear. Passing utterly beyond perversity, they attain the final nirvana. Also, all the Buddhas who reside perfectly in the three times, having relied upon the perfection of wisdom, became manifest and complete Buddhas in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the equal to the unequaled mantra, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, since it is not false, should be known as the truth. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is proclaimed. Tayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisoha. Shariputra, a bodhisattva, a great being, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like this. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration and said to the superior Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, the great being, that he had spoken well. Good, good, O son of the lineage, it is like that. Since it is like that, just as you have revealed, in that way the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Shariputra, the superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the Great Being, and that entire circle of disciples, as well as the worldly beings, gods, humans, demigods, and spirits, were delighted and highly praised what had been spoken by the Blessed One. Tayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisoha. Tayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisoha.
Great Mother Prajna Paramita and all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions. Through the power of your blessings, may these true words of mine be achieved. Just as before, when by contemplating the profound meaning of the perfection of wisdom and reciting its words, Indra overcame all the harm of Maras, non-humans, and so forth. In the same way, by my contemplating the profound meaning of the perfection of wisdom and reciting its words, may all the harm of Maras, non-humans, and so forth be overcome. May they become non-existent. May they be pacified. May they be thoroughly pacified.
Try to develop a strong belief that you have dissolved outer and inner obstacles in your life into the lack of inherent existence. What were appearances to your mind have disappeared, especially the inner obstacles of painful delusions. Whether something is an obstacle depends upon our mind, how we view it. Adverse conditions can be viewed as opportunities for spiritual growth. Or we can feel tremendous disappointment and unhappiness in relation to them. Because everything is a mere appearance to our mind, we have choice. We can move away in our mind from the pain of disappointment, anger, fear, anxiety, craving, and so forth, and decide, this is an opportunity when I experience an outer obstacle to practice patience, love, and compassion. What interferes in our being flexible in this way is so often the self that we normally see. The self that we normally see feels solid and real, as if there's somehow a third entity, somehow, who owns our body, who owns our mind. We need to try to identify this way of thinking about ourselves because it's so pervasive in our life, both during the day and during sleep and dreams. And thinking of ourselves as fixed and independent causes our opinions to seem fixed, as if they're the right way to think. We often think that the pain we feel when something doesn't go our way is the right way to think, when in fact, we're just allowing our delusions in our mind to torment us. We don't have to think that way. But before we can become more flexible and light in our thinking, we have to identify this self that we normally see. One of the ways to identify it is to think of times when your feelings have been hurt, or you've encountered an obstacle that you didn't want to encounter, or someone said something you didn't like. Usually our self appears at that time as solid and real. The hurt self, the indignant self, the angry self, the disappointed self. Spend a few minutes trying to think about this. To help you, Venerable Geshe Kelsang has created a meditation for us. He says, normally, I see myself within my body and mind, but neither my body nor my mind, nor the collection of my body and mind are myself, because these are my possessions, and myself is the possessor. Try to get a feeling for ownership of your body and mind. We say, my mind's made up. My body's looking old these days. Or my body's looking really fit. We can learn a lot about how we think about ourselves from our language. Also, when we're sick or having painful feelings, the self that we normally see feels trapped in our body, or feels trapped in our mind. All of this gives us evidence that we have this idea of some sort of third entity that's the owner of our body and mind. I'm going to read this one more time so that you can contemplate deeply. Normally, I see myself within my body and mind, but neither my body nor my mind, nor the collection of my body and mind are myself, because these are my possessions, and myself is the possessor. And possessor and possessions cannot be the same. However, there is no myself other than my body and mind. Through searching with wisdom for myself in this way, I realize that myself is unfindable. Try to get a real feel for that. This is a valid reason to prove that myself that I normally see does not exist at all. And when this makes sense to you, disappear your image of the self that you normally see. And meditate on that space like emptiness.
May all kinds of interferences, diseases, and possessing spirits be pacified. May I be separated from unfavorable conditions, and may I achieve favorable conditions and everything excellent. Through this fortune may the happiness of enlightenment be fulfilled. So that the tradition of Jesangapa, the king of the Dharma, may flourish. May all obstacles be pacified, and may all favorable conditions abound. Through the two collections of myself and others, gathered throughout the three times, may the doctrine of Conqueror Losandrapa flourish forevermore.
In this break between sessions, please contemplate how you view what you call obstacles. Is your mind becoming disturbed? Or are you using these as an opportunity for spiritual growth, to keep your mind peaceful and happy, and to practice love and compassion? Because everything is appearance to mind, we have this choice. So please continue to contemplate deeply the emptiness or lack of inherent existence of yourself during the break. Thank you.